Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Passions Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the soap opera passions. I am your regular host, LeTara, back again, second week in a row with Lisa from across the pond.
I'm here, and what a week to be back. Thank you for
Yes.
having me back.
Thank you for being here. We're going to have a good time this week, y'all. We watched episodes 641 through 645. Explosive. Literally, this week, the name of this week should be like Tiny Gun Week, because every single resident in Harmony has a tiny gun and is
Tabitha's new party favor.
Yes, she's just sprinkling them around town, and everybody's picking up guns and going to shoot and kill Julian, and it is fan-freaking-tastic, truly. So we're gonna get into this episode because I'm actually like really excited to talk about it. I'm a little tired because I went to Maria's birthday party last night. Happy birthday to Maria, everybody! One of our patrons on Patreon. But I'm a little tired because, honey, Maria knows how to party, y'all.
Happy birthday, Maria. I'm still pregnant, so I'm here with my non-alcoholic fizz for New Year's Eve in Harmony, so I can keep you on track if you need it, LeTara.
Thank you. So before we get into the episode, let's give a big shout out and thank you to all of the patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to Munashe, Marcus, Breland, Lisa, Sid, Sarana, Randall, Hannah, Camelia, Samantha, Jeanette, Eric, Fantasia, Sean, S, Larissa, Maria, George Lopez Fitzgerald, Lisa, Jessica Jean, Laura, Karen, Uche, Justin, Paige, and Casey. Thank you all so much for being patrons. I really appreciate your support beyond anything you really can understand. I think I think y'all don't know how far that goes for me, like what it means to me that y'all are supporting the podcast. So thank you so much. And to anybody who's out there who would like to become a patron, just go to patreon.com/passionspodcast and sign up for whatever tier you find most agreeable. Now on with the show. So like I said before, episodes 641 through 645, amazing. I'm sorry. We were talking before we started, and Lisa was saying, it was good, but it was very, very repetitive, which is true. It was very repetitive.
They want to keep everyone up to speed. If anyone's missed an episode, they want to fill everyone in on all the craziness that's going on.
Yeah, and I was like, TC's dad, every time he showed up on the screen, I just fast forwarded because I knew exactly what that man's gonna say. Now you know he's the one. He broke my heart. I died. You have to get revenge. Yes, we get it. Go away. He's already got the gun and is on the grounds.
Yeah, but he needed to perk him up a bit, but we'll get there. We will get there.
All right, so we're gonna start with like sex, lies, and videotape, or sex, lies, and no escape, as Tabitha calls it, which is Theresa, who is pregnant with Julian's baby, and it's all about to come out. So,
or is she?
Or is she? Yeah, that's the whole thing. So, remember last week we left off, and the tabloid reporter has questioned Ethan about whether Theresa is pregnant or not, and to prove that Theresa isn't pregnant, Ethan says, well, I'll just have Theresa tell you herself that she's not pregnant, and somehow that's going to be proof. So instead of continuing to lie like she been doing, like I didn't get this choice, but whatever. Instead of continuing to lie, Theresa just stands there, and that's when Ethan realizes that maybe she is pregnant, right? Because I mean, she could have just said, no, I'm not pregnant. And then when the pictures came out, she could have been like, yeah, they do more things than abortion. They do more things than abortion at the women's clinic.
Women's health.
Yeah.
I needed more pills.
I was volunteering to help. Like she could even go and say, like, I was there to like protest it. I was there to like talk to other mothers.
My beliefs are. Lynn and Gary, who they broke up again. I needed to go and stop Lynn.
Exactly.
Who knows?
She could have tens of reasons why she was at the women's clinic.
I was supporting a friend.
Outside of an abortion, I was supporting a friend. I was there to try to talk young women out of it, right? Like, but that doesn't happen, which honestly I'm glad, because I'm glad that this all finally did come out.
It was time.
So Ethan realizes that maybe she is pregnant. Meanwhile, Ivy and Tabitha think that Ethan has like figured out what has happened, right? Because Ethan's like, so maybe you are pregnant, and they're like, yes. Well, Ivy specifically is like, yes, that little slut's finally gonna get what's coming to her. Ethan has you figured out, bitch. But of course he doesn't. Of course
I don't
he
know
doesn't.
Ethan like we know Ethan.
Ivy doesn't even know her own idiot child. Um, he doesn't. He apologizes to her, to Theresa, and says, I'm so sorry that you felt like you couldn't tell me that you were pregnant. I know why you felt like you couldn't tell me. It's because we don't have any money, and I've been talking so much about how we have to wait till we're established until I have a job. But I'm thrilled that you're pregnant. I couldn't be happier. And then again, Theresa hasn't said a single word. He then turns to the entire room and announces to an entire room of people, hello, everybody. Teresa and I are having a baby, a child of our very own.
Yes, you do.
I mean, the way I would, even
that
if
was how I announced my pregnancy.
Yeah.
Child of our very own.
3 days into your pregnancy, and you're like, let me announce it to the world. Like, Ethan, buddy, and he shouldn't be the one making the announcement, right? Like, he should have talked to Theresa before, but I guess if it was all going to come out in the tabloid anyway.
Such a good point.
But so then the reporter goes over to Ivy and says, I guess things aren't working out the way that you thought they would. And Ivy's reply was beautiful. She says, oh, don't you worry. Teresa's being set up for a fall that will rival Icarus. And the reporter's like, who? But I love that. Theresa, it was Shakespearean to me. Teresa's being set up for a fall that will rival Icarus, which is true.
Very dramatic.
She's flying a little close to the sun. And so this is when Luis joins the party again after having like been just like reminiscing on the grounds, going into the cottage, talking about how much he feels Sheridan nearby.
Thinking she was at the gazebo.
Yeah, and then he joins the party, and Ethan tells him, hey, Luis, you and Theresa and I are having a baby. And then Luis, of all people, is like, how could you let this happen? You two aren't even married. Were you married to Sheridan every time you fucked her?
Such a good question.
Excuse me? These two, Luis and Sheridan were like two of the most sexed up people on this show. I guess it's so, but
time. She didn't get pregnant. So it's fine to have sex just as long as you don't get pregnant outside of wedlock, maybe in Luis's brain.
You know what? I will allow it. I'll allow it. That sounds like Luis's reasoning, or like the way he thinks, for sure. Okay.
Because they did have a lot of sex. We saw it in the flashbacks this week. So they were on it with the contraception.
Yeah. But he does get over it quickly. He gets over this like outrage very quickly, and he says,
as long as they get married soon.
Yeah, he's like, well, you two need to get married tonight. Yeah. It's New Year's Eve. Actually, now it's New Year's Day. Like we've moved into the next day. You think we're gonna get married?
Well, Ethan doesn't care, even if it has to be the rabbi that almost married Becky and Julian. He was available on short notice.
Tim's off having a crisis of his own.
Oh, he
can't marry them tonight.
No, we'll get to that.
So yeah, Luis is like, as long as you two get married tonight, I have no problems. Then the reporter interrupts them again, and he says, hey, you guys, you don't know the full story yet. And he says, I actually have proof that Theresa got an abortion. And so then Luis and Ethan both get extremely defensive. Ethan attacks him physically, like jacks him up. He's like, you're lying. Theresa would never do something so horrible.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, she would never do something so horrible. She could never do that to an innocent baby. Ugh. Like, I thought we were basically getting past this whole abortion thing, but we're still.
And Luis was like that as well. They were both like, no, she would never do something so awful.
Yeah, but they're still sprinkling in all that judgment. So yeah, he jacks up the reporter, and then the reporter says, no, I have proof, and he gives them the pictures of Theresa outside of the women's clinic.
Again, talking about proof, not the most solid proof.
Yeah, I mean, you saw her go in. You don't know what happened inside. But I guess everybody in this town just knows that the women's clinic is the
Yeah.
abortion clinic. They don't call it the women's clinic, they call it the abortion clinic. But I imagine if it's a women's clinic, I imagine there's lots of services that they can get there. That's not beyond abortion, but whatever. So he looks at the pictures. They look at the pictures of Theresa outside the clinic. They question her about it. And she says, yes, it's true. She says, I can explain if you let me. Ethan then stops her, and we get a reaction from Ethan that nobody was expecting. She says, yes, it's true. I can explain if you let me. Ethan stops her, which is par for the course of Ethan. I did expect him to interrupt her. But the way he reacts to this news was actually reasonable.
Yeah.
He says to her, you know what? It's not your fault. It's my fault for constantly talking about how we didn't have enough money. You must have been under such incredible pressure. I'm sorry that you felt like you had to do this, but we could have made it work. She keeps trying to explain to him, but he keeps interrupting her over and over again. She finally blurts out to him, Ethan, listen to me. It's not your baby. The baby isn't yours. Oh, in front of everybody. I mean, we're at this New Year's Eve party and she yells it. Ethan, listen to me. It's not your baby. The baby isn't yours. Well, then Ethan says, then who's the father, Theresa? And it's at this point that Julian enters the room and starts to like try to put everybody out. He's like, oh my God, you're all still here. Get out immediately.
I can tell you what he said, actually.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
He said, the party is over. No more food, no more drinks. Vamoose. That's what he says.
Yeah, he tries to put everybody out. But based on just the look on Theresa's face when he came in and the way she was like shaking, Ethan and Louise both deduce it must be Julian. And they immediately attack Julian. And Pilar and Chad have to like intervene and get between them and like try to get them off. Ethan yells at Julian because Julian doesn't know what's going on, right? He's just like so confused. He's already been attacked like 2 times tonight, TC and Antonio. Yeah. And he's just trying to like get these people out of his house, like, and go to bed and get back to Becky, right?
Because he said multiple times, hasn't he? Thank goodness Theresa didn't get pregnant after our night of passion. So he is clueless.
Yeah. And so he doesn't know what's going on. And finally, Ethan yells at Julian and says, you got Theresa drunk, then you got her pregnant. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, Theresa, talk some sense into these guys. And Ethan is like, no, Theresa is pregnant and the baby is yours. It's all news to Julian. He's very shocked by this news.
He denies it, doesn't he, at first? Yeah.
Yeah, he denies it. He says, well, and then he says, Theresa and I may have made love. We may have made love.
But it was natural because it was our wedding night.
Yeah, he was like, but we were married. What's the big deal? And Theresa yells at him, you're a disgusting pig. You took advantage of me. And then Julian says, well, Theresa seduced me. She was all over me. That girl was hot to trot. She was all over me. Well, that sends Ethan and Louise over the edge. So they attack him again physically, right? And Pilar and Chad once again like intervene and pull them off. And when they pulled them off of him, Julian makes a run for it and they chase after him, right? It's along with the tabloid reporter. And then like this whole party just disperses, right?
It does.
Like everybody just goes home. And that's a real party killer. Though I don't know. I think I would definitely be sticking around to see what happened.
Tabitha was, and she ordered popcorn from a staff member.
Yeah, she's like, I want popcorn with extra butter, please.
She always has popcorn when she's watching a good show.
Yeah. And yeah, Tabitha in this is great this week. I loved how they made use of Tabitha this week.
Who needs Timmy? She's fine as a solo act.
She rarely gets the chance to talk to any of the other characters in any meaningful way. And
she said some shit this week.
Her scenes with Ivy and Rebecca this week were fantastic. So, yeah, so she's watching all of this gleefully, I might add. She's loving it. And so they chase after Julian. The whole party disperses. They're all out in the grounds looking for Julian. Chad tries to talk Ethan down. It's not worth it. It's not working. Ethan tells Chad, like, what would you do if he did this to a woman that you love? And it basically tells him to put himself in his shoes. And Chad's like, well, I'd kill the guy.
But I'm from the streets. I play by a different set of rules.
Yeah, I'm from the streets, but so I live by a different set of rules.
Okay.
They could have left that out. It was so unnecessary. And what really bothered me, like when I heard that, I was like, okay. But then later, Gwen makes a comment to Whitney about saying, like, well, I'm not a street fighter like you. Why? What are we doing, Passions writers? Like, why did we do this 2 times in the week, but with the 2 black characters, but fine.
Yeah, and then we've got the very aggressive TCs pops as well, so there's a theme.
Oh my God, it's crazy. So, let's see. Chad tries to talk Ethan down. It's not working. Ethan then just goes to find Julian, and then this is where we move into the area of like everybody's gonna be outside looking for Julian, and from every storyline. So we're gonna go through the stories, and then we're gonna go to like what happens when they all are outside together. So meanwhile, while that's going on outside and everybody's hunting down Julian, Pilar catches up to Luis outside as well and tries to stop him. And she says to him, let the law handle this. And Luis says, the law is not going to do a damn thing about this. He would know, wouldn't he? He would know. They don't solve shit in this town. They don't solve a single crime. So he said the law's not going to do a damn thing about this. He says, and then the Cranes are going to spin the whole thing so Theresa looks like a whore. And he said whore so hard. And then he says, Julian is not going to live to hurt anyone ever again. He's hurt our family and so many other families. He's not going to live to hurt anyone ever again. He rushes off to find Julian. And inside, this was fun. Inside, actually, let's finish up outside before we do inside.
Yeah, it's like Whiplash, wasn't it? These episodes, yeah.
Ethan runs off. He catches up to Luis, and he says to Luis, "Hey, man, I know you're a cop, but I'm gonna kill Julian if I find him." Luis says, "I'm not a cop tonight." He says, "None of us are responsible for what happens tonight. Julian Crane is a dead man." And then he pulls out his teeny tiny gun. Everybody's got a teeny tiny gun this week. He pulls out his teeny tiny gun and they go off looking for Julian. Meanwhile, inside, Tabitha is starting to stir up little bits of trouble. And I loved it. First, she sees Ivy and she grabs Ivy's teacup, which I don't know why Ivy was drinking tea at a New Year's Eve party. At her own New Year's Eve party. But she grabs Ivy's teacup and she's like, I read tea leaves myself. And actually, and at first Ivy's not interested, but then Tabitha says, yes, I see a very happy woman who has gotten her revenge on a man. And the man, it turns out, is dead. And Ivy's like loving it. She's like, oh, you can see that? And then Tabitha says, yes, I do see that, but the person who killed him, their life will be destroyed as well. And Ivy says, well, that's no concern of mine. And Tabitha says, yes, but what if the person is your son? Did it never cross your mind when you were scheming that this might backfire? Like, and Ivy, at first, Ivy's like, how do you know all of this? Like, because Tabitha basically tells Ivy, I know that you put all of this in motion, right? Like, this is all your scheme and your scam.
She was like, I just read what the leaves tell me.
Yeah, but yeah, she did it in such a way that it was like, oh, it's mystical. I just
had a lot of detail though from some leaves.
And so Ivy starts to panic, right? She's like, oh my God, it didn't occur to me that Ethan might kill Julian. Why did that not occur to you? How would that not have occurred to you?
She just thought it was going to be Luis again, who she sees as being more aggressive than her darling son.
So she rushes off. She's like, I have to find Julian. She rushes off, but then Tabitha like stops her again. Um and or maybe she doesn't. I don't remember. Whatever. She rushes off. Ivy goes and gets her teeny tiny gun. And she says, Ethan can't kill Julian if I kill him first. And she says, I know exactly how Julian will try to escape. So she goes off to go where, and she does. She finds Julian. She's the first person to find Julian.
And the policeman doesn't think to look in the very obvious place where Ivy went to look for him.
Like, if somebody's on the run, why wouldn't you check the garage? Why wouldn't you go cut them off first where the cars are?
And that's why the law is not going to solve it, because the police officers at Harmony PD
are terrible. They're terrible. So now we have to pivot to Gwen. Gwen has shown up after such a long absence, and let me be clear, I didn't like a single thing she had to say this week. I don't like this lady.
Awful.
She was awful.
Maria, we can't take it anymore. Gwen is a horror.
Yeah, right now this is horrible. So Gwen shows up and she goes up to her mom's room. I don't know what Gwen's wearing. Like, was she in her nightgown? Where was she coming from? Does she's been at the country club? Mansion?
She said she'd been bored out of her mind at the country club. So of course, I'm guessing at 1 o'clock in the morning, she decides to go into her mum's bedroom.
Yeah, her newlywed mom at that.
Does she
right?
not know what to? The things she could have walked in on.
Yeah, for sure, for real. Oh my God, her mom and Julian doing all that nasty role play they like to do. Julian in that diaper.
But she was the only one in Harmony that actually didn't see that tonight.
Yeah. So she walks into her mom's room at the mansion, and it's dark, and she wakes up her mother for some reason. She's just like you said, she was just bored, so she came to like hang out with her mom.
It's the middle of the night. She's been at a boring party. Would you go home to get some rest, or would you sneak into your mum's bedroom?
Right. Well, Rebecca wakes up and wonders where Julian is. She's like, oh, last time I saw him, he was going downstairs to get some alcohol and he never came back. And so then they talk about like their plan to bring Ethan back into the Crane family. Da. She's talking about how she's a Crane now. Rebecca, she's married to Julian, right?
But Gwen says, I need to move on, which I really liked. There was a glimmer. She was like, Theresa can never do anything to make Ethan leave her. I need to move on. And I was like, yes, Gwen, for a second, you were on the right track.
You were absolutely
right. Only a second.
She really was. I was like, yeah, she should have moved on by now at this point. Yeah. Really. And so the two of them then go downstairs to like, I guess, check out the party or to find Julian. But Tabitha stops them when they come downstairs. She starts to talk to them and brings them up to speed on all the things that have happened, the Theresa situation, and that Theresa's pregnant with Julian's baby. Rebecca is devastated. Gwen is overjoyed, right? Yeah. Rebecca has to take a seat. Gwen immediately rushes off and says that she's going to have fun torturing Theresa. So she goes to find Theresa to torture her.
Which proves your theory that she doesn't love Ethan. She just hates Theresa. She's not going to console the man she loves. She is going to torture Theresa. Spot on, LeTara.
Thank you, Lisa. I agree. Like, you find out that this man that you say you love, it has just gotten this most extremely devastating news, and that you now have an opening, right? You now have an opening, and instead of like going to try and like get in that little opening, you go and fuck with Theresa, who you believe has no chance. If she really didn't have a
kicking someone when they're down.
If she really didn't have a chance with Ethan anymore, like if you really thought that, then why even bother with her? I feel like this was like a little bit of psychological warfare. Like you said, kick her when she's down so she stays down, right? And so yeah, she goes and she finds Theresa, and she very happily gloats to Theresa. She says your relationship with Ethan is over. She's just super nasty to her. You're now he knows what kind of like what kind of slut you are. Just a lot of horrible stuff. Pilar tells her to leave. That is enough, Gwen. Leave.
And she
Tries
says
to
that's
put her out.
horrible even for you. Like, and it was horrible.
Frankly, I didn't write any of it down. I wrote down like the basic idea, but I'm not. Sorry, Marie. I'm not giving Gwen the air.
No, she doesn't deserve it. And then she found the tabloid pictures, and then she went in even harder.
Yeah, so she found those pictures of Theresa going into the women's clinic, and she says to Theresa, "Oh, you got an abortion," and she's smiling like she's so happy. She's so happy. She's like, "Oh, you got an abortion. Ethan hates abortion, and now he hates you."
Oh, I wish Maria was on this week, actually. I would have loved to hear her try to defend Gwen.
I have to ask her about it.
Yeah.
We'll see her soon. We'll see her again soon.
Yeah, she can update us. And yeah, I'm like, why are these young people in Harmony having so many conversations off camera about their views about abortion? She was like, oh, he hates it and now he hates you. They've talked about this a lot.
It's crazy. First I'm hearing of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In these last couple of weeks. First I'm hearing of it, but okay. Whitney then steps up to Gwen and presses her to leave. She's like, I thought you were leaving. You really need to leave now.
And she threatened to throw her out, which is why Gwen said, I don't know how to street fight, but you obviously do. But combined with what we've seen from Gwen before, I think you're right. I think there was racism in there.
Yeah, Gwen's super racist.
Yeah, we've heard Gwen say some things.
Gwen's very racist. We know that about her. She has said so much, like
Theresa.
She says a lot of the same shit that Rebecca says about Theresa. She says those same
fajita.
Calls her guacamole and all that shit. Like, yeah, mija. That one sticks in my mind. When she was like had the baseball bat and she was like, "You're not gonna get out of this one this time, mija." After she had like locked Pilar in that closet, which is a great moment.
Of Julian as well this week, because there's so many flashbacks of Julian saying to Antonio, "Your familia," in a really not cool way.
There's a very clear class divide in this show. And along those class divisions, there's also like a lot of like racial divide as well, that the wealthier people feel very comfortable saying very racist things. So anyway, Whitney presses Gwen. Gwen just keeps just yapping at Theresa.
Well, she was too confident here. She says, Ethan's going to come back with me and realize I'm the only one he really loved. I've won. And I thought, oh, you are confident, girl. Like, there's a lot that would need to happen for you two to get back together.
She said, I've won.
Yeah.
And this goes all the way back to like what I was saying in like episode 150, that at a certain point for Gwen, it just becomes about beating Theresa. It is not about Ethan.
We're already there. Yeah.
Yeah. They could be fighting over a fucking hamburger. You see what I'm saying? It's not about
cheese
Ethan.
And ham sandwich, maybe.
Yeah. They really could be fighting over that. She just doesn't want Theresa to have it. Whatever it is, she just doesn't want Theresa to have it. And so, yeah. Meanwhile, while the daughter is overjoyed and doing her thing, Rebecca is grappling with this news, realizing her marriage to Julian is null and void. It is. It's a sham, and that's when Tabitha like helps to gin up more of her anxieties. She's like, "Oh, right, didn't you divorce your husband? And weren't you able to divorce him so quickly because you told him you didn't want any alimony? And now you were gonna marry Julian for his money and his millions, but you're not Mrs. Crane anymore. And I called you Mrs. Hotchkiss, but you're not Mrs. Hotchkiss either." And she says, and at one point she's like, "Can I get you a glass of, let me get you a glass of champagne, Mrs. whatever your name is."
Yeah, that was funny. Mrs. whatever. It was too hard for her to think of.
Whatever your name is. It is so funny. And so Tabitha kind of guides Rebecca to the conclusion that all of this is Julian's fault, because first
Yeah.
Rebecca's like, this is all that slut Theresa's fault, and then Tabitha's like, is it? I mean, she has some fault to bear. Sure, there's a little fault on her shoulders, but wasn't Julian the one that got her drunk? Wasn't Julian the one that bedded her and didn't tell you about it? He also married you knowing full well that he had sex with her, so he knew that the marriage was a sham from the beginning, right? He knew that his marriage to you was not valid, which is kind of an interesting point. Julian believes that his marriage to Rebecca is valid. I will say that.
He thought that was done. He'd got the annulment. No one else knew. I thought this was good because it was kind of the first time. Rebecca always blames Theresa for everything, but of course she admitted that he took advantage of her, and it was the first time she's stopped blaming Theresa for everything. Obviously we needed her to for this storyline, and she admitted that Julian kind of had the biggest part in this, which directs her rage towards Julian. And she didn't need anyone to give her a tiny gun, because we all know Becky has her gun on her at all times.
Becky stays packing, okay? So she pulled that tiny gun from under her dress, and she says, Julian has to pay. I'm gonna kill Julian. Everybody's gonna kill Julian. I have so many like LOLs and LMAOs in my notes from when I was typing, because it's just like, okay, they're gonna kill Julian too. Oh, this one has a tiny gun too. I'm like
at one point they were practically fighting over who was gonna get to kill him.
Absolutely. So then Tabitha is like roaming around the halls, and she says that her nose is leading her to like something that will help her stir up more trouble, right? And she is led to the most random gun cabinet I've ever seen. It's just like very in a safe hallway. And it's just like open to the public. It's in the hallway. You just like pull back like a picture, and there's a wall full of tiny guns. And so Tabitha takes the guns and starts planting them around. Okay, so we're gonna stop right there with this. Go on to Sheridan and Louise, Antonio, all of that, and then we'll pick back up with Julian's murder mob in a little while. So during this party, Sheridan and Louise, they keep missing each other on the Crane estate. Who fucking cares? Not me. At one point, I'm actually loathed to even bring this up, but I'm gonna say it because it's in my notes. At one point, Sheridan is like on the ground, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I might fall into the brook behind the guest house." Wait, how did I know there was a brook behind the guest house?
Yeah, and then it was never mentioned again. She had this big revelation, but then just immediately dropped it.
Which is why I wrote it in my notes, because I was like, okay.
It was, potentially
but nothing came of it. Meanwhile, Antonio has found Julian and is attacking him. He tells him, "You're going to pay for all the people that you've hurt." And then Julian tells him, like, "You'll go to jail if you kill me." And he also says, "If you stay in Harmony, you'll ruin your entire family's lives." And that's when Antonio kind of bags off a little bit, and Julian then says, "You know what? I'm tired of all you locals pushing me around.
Yeah.
It's time that your kind remembers the power that the Cranes have, a power we will not hesitate to use to crush those who forget their place." And then he says, "You remember the threats I made when you left. I will make good on every one of them." So again, we don't know what it is, but it's enough for Antonio to kind of back off. And Antonio says, "I hate your stinking guts."
Yeah.
Which, have you ever seen Little Rascals, the movie?
No.
You haven't?
I don't think so.
There's a part in it where the Alfalfa, who's a member of the He-Man Woman Haters Club, he loves his girlfriend. He's like this little girlfriend named Darla, right? And he loves Darla, but his friends don't like that he likes girls. So he's like trying to pretend like he doesn't like her, right? And so they make him write like a breakup note to her, and he like writes this note and it's like, Dear Darla, I hate your stinking guts. You make me vomit. You're scum between my toes. Love, Alf, Alpha. And when he said, I hate your stinking guts, that's all I could think. All I could think was alfalfa, that Antonio is alfalfa. I
thought
hate
it
your
was quite a
stinking
good
guts.
insult to say that someone's guts stink. It was a nomination for Burn of the Week, but then there was a better one that came later.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear it, because I feel like I hate your stinking guts is so well, again, because to me I just kind of equate it with like the little rascals, and it's
quite
so
weak.
silly. Yeah. So then Julian tells him, coming back to Harmony, if you come back to Harmony, you will open up a can of worms that will destroy the low life loser Lopez Fitzgeralds. Nasty. That's nasty work, considering
Another nomination. Yeah.
considering this man was ready to murder you. You really want to talk crazy about his family like that? Low life losers, Lopez Fitzgeralds. I don't know, but Antonio agrees that him coming back, being there, will only like bring pain to his family. And then Julian like runs off, and Antonio catches back up with Sheridan / Diana, and he tells her that he has reconsidered meeting with his family after he having a run-in with one of the evil people who actually live on this estate. And he says that person is the reason that he even left Harmony in the first place. And Sheridan just rolls over and is like, okay, let's go back to the boat. Like, even though
I'm sorry, what do you want to do? Yeah, and Brian said, go back to the boat.
They've come so far, and she's been so pushy about him meeting up with his family. Y'all are in town. You're where they are. And it just, to me, it seemed odd that Diana would just be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's just give up, because she's been so extremely pushy about it.
I guess it was really sad. And as Antonio did say to Julian, she's a kind and sweet woman. So she just wanted to put him first. And then Julian said, oh, that reminds me of people talking about my dear saintly sister, even though they were very generic words to describe a nice person, but it was obviously just a clever little wink to us.
Yeah, it was. So they then go back to the boat, where Antonio gets his gun. Annie, get your gun. Antonio, get your gun. And Sheridan makes sandwiches, as Sheridan does. She's always making sandwiches.
Like, it's all they eat.
She's always making sandwiches. This lady, I guess, you know what? It actually makes sense. Sheridan can't cook.
Such a good point.
Wait, I forgot about that whole little plot point that Sheridan can't even make eggs. So of course the only thing she can make is a sandwich. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop giving her so much flack about it. Okay, so Diana and Antonio, they're like on the boat, they're talking, and then Liz and Doc show up from the island.
They're such good friends.
Yeah, to just like check on them. You mean to tell me you got a New Year's Eve flight to Boston and then drove to Harmony?
Who's looking after the hotel? Who's looking after the ill people on St. Lisa's?
Who indeed? I guess business wasn't so good for Liz anyway. So she was like, these people can fend for themselves. Also, where did Sheridan, I thought about this. Sheridan and Antonio both had on like formal wear going to the party. Did they pack that?
So I think we've cracked the mystery, you know, the missing week. I don't know how it works over there, but in the UK, on the day after Christmas, that's when the sales start. Sometimes we go shopping. That's what they did in the missing week. They went shopping.
They went shopping, yeah, because here we have like Black Friday on the day after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
It used to be like big sales for real, and now it's not so much. Now I will say, me and my mom, when I was growing up, or back years ago, we used to do after Christmas shopping more so, because most people here don't shop after Christmas. Typically it's like people like doing returns. But a lot of stuff does start to get marked down after Christmas. So we would like go shopping after Christmas, all the time. So it's good to know that there are other people in the world who also do that.
So the day after Christmas over here is called Boxing Day, and that's the big thing. It's Boxing Day sales. So yeah, that is what quite a lot of people do the day after Christmas here.
What does Boxing Day mean? Because I've
I do
heard that
not know, but I
before.
really want to Google it. I assumed it's because you're throwing away the boxes from all the presents, but I don't have, that's not based on anything except
You
my
know what?
brain.
I'm gonna take it because that sounds good enough for me.
I'm going to Google it as soon as we finish
Yeah,
because I
we'll
want to
have to
know
look
now.
it up.
I'll let you know.
Okay, so yeah, they Doc and Antonio, Doc and Liz show up out of the fucking blue. Diana and Antonio kind of recap certain little things to them, leaving out, of course, Antonio leaves out the part where he almost killed that guy, or killed Julian almost. But they do talk about like how there's this person in town who, if they disappeared or were gone, my life, I would be able to go back to my family and my life would be a lot better. And then after Liz and Doc leave to go find a hotel in
Because
town.
it's cold. Thank you, Doc, for pointing out the
Yeah,
obvious.
it's
He's not sleeping on
freezing.
a boat.
It's like, you're the one that brought your ass up here from Bermuda in the middle of winter. So, so Antonio tells Diana that he can't sleep. He needs some air. He wants to go for a walk. So he goes off to go for a walk, but Liz catches up with him because she's like been laying in wait for him because she saw him with that gun when they got on the boat in the first place. Nobody else saw it. He tried to hide it, but she saw it, and she saw that he tried to hide it, so she was suspicious. And so she realizes that he's about to do something potentially very dangerous, and she's worried about him, and she tries to talk him out of it, saying, well, getting your revenge on this guy, is it really the right thing to do? Don't you shouldn't do this. It's gonna like ruin your life, right? Uh he's like, no, I gotta do what I gotta do.
She says, I see, I can't talk you out of it. And then he asks her to stay with Sheridan because he doesn't want her to be alone.
Yep. So although he had no trouble leaving her alone until before Liz showed up, so why does Liz have to stay there? So all right, so that's where we ended with Sheridan and Luis and Antonio and Liz and Doc, all of those people. And now we're going to move into our troubled marriages, TC and Eve. We had no like Ivy and Sam Grace stuff this week, which was actually a nice little reprieve.
No David at all. Refreshing.
Yeah, David was at this party. Where did he go?
Oh my gosh. Him and John maybe went for some father-son bonding time.
Yeah, because David and John were both at this party, and now we don't see them anymore. They're just like fucked off somewhere. They're like, you know what, we better get out of here. But David should be taking pictures, right? Like,
yeah,
getting all the action. Yeah.
Maybe Ivy sent him home. She didn't want Ethan embarrassed. Look at us filling in the gaps for the Passions writers.
Maybe. Okay, so TC is ready to kill Julian. They're in the in Julian's study or library.
The library, get it right?
And TC tells Sam about like how he had seen his father. We just get the recap of everything. Yeah. Sam says you need to stop and think before you destroy your family. Here's a thought, Sam. If somebody is making terroristic threats, saying they're going to kill somebody, you after having actually committed a crime, because he actually attempted to murder Julian when Sam came in.
He should have already arrested him, Sam,
he had to
if he wasn't corrupt. Yeah.
He had to pull TC off of Julian in the first place and yelled at Julian, for God's sakes, Julian, run. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're worried and you're trying to talk him down and say, you're going to destroy your family if you go through this. Maybe arrest him and put him in a fucking cell so he can calm down. Okay? Like, even if you're not going to truly press the charges, because you know he's not going to do that because he's corrupt.
Yeah.
Put him in a cell. Lock him up somewhere. I'm sorry. As a friend, if you're really like, you're going to destroy your family, you're going to destroy your life. Me? If I'm the chief of police, my friend is getting handcuffs. You're getting cuffed.
As a friend or as the chief of police, it's the same action.
Well, we know that Sam doesn't care about being the chief of police. No. And the only reason he cares about like TC killing Julian is because TC's his friend. If TC was not friends with Sam would let TC go at Julian, period. Right? But he tries to talk him down, tells me he's gonna ruin his life. What about your girls? What about your family? And he says to TC, go home, like lie down, calm down.
Go to
I'll
sleep. That's what they tell everyone to do in Harmony who's
I'll
having bad times.
convince Julian not to press charges.
Mm.
Corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Corruption. Oh my God. So TC and Eve go home. Eve tries to like rationalize why TC had seen an apparition of his father, but TC like puts his foot down. He like blows up on her. He says
He does. He shouts at his wife again.
yeah, he yells at her. He's like, "Damn it, Eve! I did see my father. It
Damn
was
it, honey."
real."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then he talks about the fog and how he believes that the fog showed him what really happened in the past. And so then she wonders, well, did what I saw in the fog, was it also true?
Yeah.
Was it also the truth of what happened in the past? And so eventually Eve tells TC, you've had quite a night, honey. I'm gonna get you a sedative so you can relax. Oh,
What
this
else?
lady, this pill pusher. Oh my God. So then she goes to the kitchen to get him like some water and a pill. And she starts to think, you know what? Maybe what I saw in the fog was real. I think Julian took my baby. Like Julian hired someone to have my baby kidnapped. And then she grabs a giant kitchen knife and she says, I'm going to kill Julian for what he did to me. Meanwhile, TC is in the living room with his tiny gun. He's found his tiny gun.
Was there like a sale on tiny guns in Harmony and everyone got the same model?
They got him on Boxing Day. They all went out shopping on Boxing Day and got guns.
The missing week, we filled it in.
Everybody bought a gun on Boxing Day, a teeny tiny one. He pulls out his tiny gun. He says, Julian is gonna die for what he's done to me. Then Eve comes back in, gives TC force feeds TC some drugs, and then as he's falling, she's like, "Oh, it shouldn't be too bad. Like you just, you'll go to sleep." And then she looks at him because she knows what the fuck she gave him. He doesn't know what she gave him, but she knows what she gave him and how much. And so she's waiting for him to fall asleep, and she starts going, honey, tries to wake him up, and he doesn't wake up. She's like, all right, I gotta go. And she heads back to the mansion to talk to get at Julian. And so back at the mansion, Sam is talking to Julian, who has come back into the office, I guess, back into the sorry, you're right, I need to get it right, the library. And he explains to Julian that he says, you're lucky to be alive, because Julian's like, I want to press charges. And Sam's like, you will be pressing not a single charge in this town, not while I'm the law. Not while I'm around. He says, you should be you're lucky to be alive. And he says, I'm surprised no one has put a bullet in you already. Yeah. And he says, if I granted clemency to anybody in town who killed you, there would be a line around the block to shoot you. He says, sometimes, Julian, when I see you, all I see is a dead man walking. I loved it.
Past him. It seems like something he would do.
I loved it. Sam is so bad at his job. He doesn't deserve his title at all. But on the other hand, he's not wrong about what he's saying to Julian, and I'm not mad about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not angry that he's like not upholding the law in Julian's favor, because Julian fucking sucks. But it's just the principle of the thing. But like, because if you can pick and choose, then is it really the law?
Yeah. He's not doing his job. Defund the Harmony police.
Crooked cop. Yeah, defund them. Abolish them entirely. They need a whole new system. Okay, so Eve comes back to the mansion, and she tells Julian, because this is after Sam has left, she comes in, and now she's face to face with Julian. She tells him how TC got into the safe. He found proof of the car crash and what he did to him. Julian says to her, I wouldn't dig too deep into that night if I were you.
Mm.
You won't like what you find. And I remember exactly what that plot point is. Like, I remember
Yes, it's
exactly
just
what
come
it
back to me
is.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you know, you know, she's not gonna like what she finds when she figures out what actually happened that night for
No.
sure. Um, so he says there's more to the story than your husband or even his like dead father knows, like his
Mm.
ghostly father knows. And so she then tells him, changes the subject, tells him that she knows that their baby is alive because she saw it in the fog. And he's just like, what are you talking about? Are you a lunatic just like your husband now, too? And she says, no, I'm sure. I know it. You hired someone to kidnap our baby. Jen- Julian sincerely, this was like one moment of sincerity from Julian this week. He sincerely tells Eve that he believes that the baby died.
Yeah, he
Um,
tells her she needs to move on.
yeah, he says, you need to move on with your life. The baby died. But Eve doubles down, says that
Mm-hmm.
Julian took her baby and he ruined her life. Julian finally cuts her off because Julian's getting like worked up. He's like over everybody talking about how horrible he is. He's like, oh, boo hoo, I'm such a monster. I ruined your life. Ah. And he says, you know what? I'm going to have your husband, your crazy husband, locked up for, trying to kill me, number one. But also, he went through my stuff. He broke into my safe. He says, and I'm gonna tell him the truth of our affair that we had a baby.
Yeah, that was
And
weird.
well, I think for him, it's
It's all
that
out
is
there.
always, yeah, that's always kind of
Yeah.
looming over his head when it comes to Eve. And if TC gets locked up and then he tells TC the truth, then TC can't do anything to him
Yeah,
because he's
because he's
locked
already
up.
trying to kill me anyway, so let's have it. Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense than everybody in this town having a gun and
Yeah.
and shooting him trying to find Julian. So he he then rushes off. Oh, wait.
He was
Sorry, I'm
horrible.
on the wrong note.
He says, do you think anyone will give a rat's rear end? I'm sure you weren't the only one. I'm sure I have kids that I don't know about, which, wow.
Yep, yep. That's exactly what he
What a
says.
thing to be blasé about.
Yeah, and so she then like begs him not to tell the truth, and he tells her, you know what, is I gotta do what I gotta do. You can show
Mm.
yourself out. He leaves her alone in the library, and she's crying, she's upset. She opens a drawer to find some tissues. She finds some tissues, but she also finds, dun dun dun,
Of
a tiny
course.
gun. She also finds a tiny
They're
gun.
everywhere.
There's so many guns just lying around this mansion. It's crazy.
The Cranes bought them in bulk.
It was, yeah. They went to Sam's Club and they bought
Mm.
just a case of guns, I guess. So she finds Julian's gun, and she says, I can't let him do it. I can't let him ruin my life. Um, I'm not gonna let him ruin my life. And she says, once is enough. This time I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop you. That's what it was. Yeah, you ruined my life one time. I'm not gonna let you ruin it again. This time I'm gonna stop you. This is when Grace walks in.
Mm.
Grace is so annoying.
What's new?
Grace is so annoying. Grace comes in, and they have a conversation around why Eve is in the library, why she came back. She's like, "Great, Eve, I thought you were gone. I thought you took TC home."
I
And
did. TC is sleeping. I gave him a sedative. Of course
yeah,
you did, Eve.
of course you did, Dr. Death. And so Eve tells her that Julian is planning to destroy her. She says Julian is going to destroy me. He's going to tell everybody. He's going to tell TC about like our affair and the baby. And then she rushes off, and Grace notices she has that gun. So she tries to rush off, but Grace kind of chases after her, turns her around, and stops her and tries to get her to stop whatever it is that she's about to do. Because Grace realizes, oh my God, my friend's about to murder somebody, I think. And so Grace tries to reason with her, and she says, well, I don't know, maybe he'll change his mind.
Hmm.
Maybe he won't tell him because, maybe he'll I don't know. Maybe he'll feel sorry for you. I don't know. I don't know what was going through Grace's mind
She
at
was
this point.
she was kind of being a good friend. She was trying to talk her down. She was like, there might be another way, she said, which I liked. I'll go get Sam. He's good at dealing with crises.
He deals with crisis every day.
Really?
Let me go get Sam. That's what she says. Um, Eve says to her, I realize that you're always trying to see the good in everyone, but there is no good in Julian Crane. He doesn't give a damn about me. He's a monster and he's gotta be stopped.
But then she kind of clocks on. She says, well, don't tell Sam. You're right. I just need to calm down, because she's like, I do not need Sam around here right now.
Yep. And she then sends Grace back out into the party. She's like, you go back out there. I just need a moment to like clean myself up, because, you know, she's a mess. She's been crying. And Grace is like, good. All right. I'm going to go. I'll see you out there, champ.
From murder to zero in 10 seconds, all is fine, because Grace is so intuitive with her powers.
Because Great and Eve put on a nice little show, and it was interesting. And like I've been saying, I've been telling y'all, Eve is a villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she played this like a villain so well, because her face, she was angry, she was upset. Julian has to die. I'm gonna murder him. The minute Grace brings up Sam, aka the police, her whole face softened, her demeanor softened. She's smiling. She's like, oh, you know what? You're right. I was just being silly. She's almost kind of matching Grace's energy in that moment, you know, like kind of mirroring how Grace tends to act.
She's
I
a
think
calculating queen. Yeah.
I think in a way to like disarm Grace, which works perfectly. So yeah, she sends Grace off. She puts that gun. Well, before she sends Grace off, she makes a show about putting the gun back in the drawer. But as soon as Grace leaves, she gets the tiny gun again.
I'm sorry, Grace. I have to.
Yep. And so she goes back out to rejoin the party, what's left of this party anyway. And Theresa explains to them that the whole pregnancy was revealed, and she blames herself for the whole situation. But Eve very forcefully tells her, this is not your fault. Julian is to blame. He did this. He's the one who took advantage of you. He's a monster who takes advantage of young women. He uses them, and he doesn't give a damn if he ruins their lives. Whitney then steps in and is like, Mom, what's this? What do you mean? Like, do you know other young women whose lives he's ruined and he's done this to? And Eve just kind of covers it and is like, I'm just sure. I just know that he's a horrible man.
Yeah, she's like, I'm sure there's many other women he's taken advantage of.
Yeah,
she generalizes it.
And so then Eve says, I'll be right back. And she rushes out of the house. Grace goes after her to stop her. And Eve turns around and tells her, Julian ruined my life, ruined Theresa's life, just like he ruined mine. He doesn't deserve to live, and I'm going to make sure he doesn't. He dies tonight. Tonight. Julian Crane will die tonight.
Tabitha almost breaks into that song in this episode.
He will die tonight. Yeah, Tabitha says it so many times. Julian Crane will die tonight, which actually is probably the name of the episode. I don't know. There were so many quotable moments this week.
I caught one actually that I thought would be a good episode title, but it's gone. I should have written it down.
One was
I think it was from Ivy.
Yeah. Oh, Ivy had so many. Yeah. Again, I couldn't even get them all down because so many people had a lot of like Julian Crane's gonna die tonight kind of things. But yeah, I had a bunch of really good ones.
It was something about hell or something, and she's like, yo, I'm just gonna send you straight to hell. I don't know. It was awesome.
Yeah. So let's finish up with this, and then we're gonna move on to our murder mob. Okay. So meanwhile, while all this is happening at the mansion, TC has a dream. Like we get a recap of like what he saw in the fog that night, and he's having that dream. He jolts awake, so his body overcomes the drugs. His body, like his bloodthirst is so deep and visceral that it overcame his wife's sedatives.
That's why Pops reappeared. He needed to hype him up more. Yeah.
Or maybe it was a drug hallucination. Like
maybe she gave him too much sedative that it had the reverse effect.
Yeah. But yeah,
Speed. Yeah.
He pops up And he's like, I have to go kill Julian with my tiny gun. And then his father appears again, spurs him on, saying, it's time. It's time for you to destroy the man who destroyed our lives. And so TC makes his way back to the grounds to look for Julian. So everybody now we've talked about everybody who's like ready to kill Julian, right? But I think we've talked about everybody who's ready to kill Julian.
Did we talk about Pilar and Theresa getting out there ready to kill him?
I add them at this point, right? Because this is when we start to see what's going on with all the little guns that Tabitha's planting around the grounds, right?
She's just throwing them around everywhere.
So TC, our first group of murderers is TC, Ethan, Eve, Luis, and Antonio.
Yeah,
they're all scouring the grounds searching for Julian, each of which is armed except for Ethan at this point. So they all kind of run into each other and talk about their reasons for wanting to kill Julian. At one point, Ethan runs into TC, and TC tells him why he wants to kill Julian. And he tells TC, give me a holler if you find him, because I won't first crack at him. And TC's like, sorry, Ethan, like to himself. He's like, sorry, Ethan, if I find him, that bastard is mine.
I'd let someone else do it, because you get what you want and you don't have to go to jail.
That's what I'm saying. Get a little kick in at the end or something, but just to get the little aggression out, but let somebody else do the murder part.
Well, I said they should all team up. They should all do one non-fatal shot that collectively kills him.
They should do like the I am Spartacus.
Yeah,
I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. Yes.
That was my solution. Yeah,
that would have been smart. So then Ethan runs into Eve, and this was a good conversation. Eve tries to convince Ethan to forgive Theresa. She says, try to put this behind you. Go talk to Theresa. She says Theresa is a victim in all of this. Even though I've said that Eve is a villain, Eve is also the only person in this entire show, in this entire thing at this point, who has referred to Theresa as a victim. We've heard her be referred to as an innocent. We've heard that she's been taken advantage of. They've used all the, but Eve is the first person to say Theresa is a victim. And I was so glad to hear it. But of course, Ethan immediately goes, there are other victims in this.
Meaning him and all the lies Theresa's told him was my assumption.
That's what he meant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he meant. He brings up that she lied to him a lot. Okay, but Theresa was raped and is pregnant with her rapist baby. So I'm sorry, I just couldn't give it to Ethan on this one. I get it that your feelings are hurt.
No, I was shocked. He'd been so good earlier on, and now he's just like, no, the relationship is over.
He didn't seem to be that upset with Theresa. Like earlier on, and now
even though he thought she'd aborted their baby at that time, and abortions are the most horrible thing apparently Ethan thinks someone can do, and he was lovely and supportive to her and actually blamed himself. But now
that we find out that Theresa's a victim, and he says, how could a man love a woman he can't trust, who keeps terrible, destructive secrets? Which, of course, was just kind of a nod to Eve keeping the secrets that she's been keeping from TC, and just giving her more motivation to try and find Julian to kill him, because she's worried that her husband won't love her anymore, right? If he finds out what happened. So in the course of their conversation, Eve finds out from Ethan that TC is back on the grounds. And so that's when she's like, you know what, I'm going to have to let Ethan and Theresa figure out their own shit. I have my own shit to figure out. And she rushes
more motivation to kill Julian, because she can't let TC get in trouble for her mistakes.
Yep. That's what all the women are doing in this right now. All of the women, with the exception of Rebecca, are worried that some man in their life is going to go to jail for the rest of their lives for killing Julian. So they decide, I have to be the one to kill Julian so that they don't go to jail. But what about you, girl? What about you? These men should be able to control themselves. But whatever.
Is it all mothers? It's mothers and wives. Very dedicated.
So, Eve rushes off because she's like, I gotta go kill Julian. Everybody's gotta go kill Julian. Julian, sorry, Luis. Let's talk about Luis now. So Luis attacks somebody. He tackles someone who he thinks is Julian, but it turns out to be Antonio, who is his
Similar.
brother he hasn't seen in so long. And the first thing he tells him is to get out of Harmony. He's like, so you did come. And then he's like, you might as well just get out of here. Never come back. Get out of here. Scram. And Antonio tries to tell him, like, you don't understand the whole story. You don't know what happened. Like, there's a lot that you don't know about. But Luis is so distracted. Like, he's trying to get Antonio to leave, but he also is like, I gotta find Julian.
Yeah, he's like, we've lived so long without you. I don't need you now. I've been doing it all on my own.
Yeah.
Get lost, basically.
Yeah, get lost. And he says, and now he says, like, and now Theresa. And then Antonio's like, what about Theresa? What about Theresa? And Luis doesn't tell him. He's like, don't worry about it. Just get out of here before you get out of here before you hurt mama anymore, before you hurt our family anymore, basically.
He thinks it's not Antonio's business what's going on with Theresa, because he's basically like, you are not a part of this family. We've lived this long without you. We can continue. So yeah, he wants him out of the picture.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So Antonio asks why he's after Julian. Luis won't tell him. He says, just get out of here and never come back. And then he runs off to find Julian. And then Antonio is like, sorry, Luis, I can't leave. I have to kill Julian Crane. So to himself, he doesn't tell Luis, because Luis doesn't know that Antonio is trying to kill Julian. Yeah. If they had just had a real, like, if Luis had just said, like, what are you doing here? Right? Like, asked a question, they would have found out that they're both looking for Julian to kill Julian. And then Luis would have had, like, been like, wait, why are you trying to kill Julian? And maybe we could have all come to an understanding.
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy
is my friend.
Brother again.
Yeah, is my brother again. Yes. So this is when Julian goes to the garage where Ivy is laying in wait for him, because she said, I know exactly how he's gonna try to get out of here. And so once she got her little gun, she went off to the garage and was waiting for him in the dark. And so he turns on the light.
I thought it was going to be like a secret room that only Cranes knew about.
I thought it was going to be like, me too. I thought it was going to be like secret tunnels, something. She made it seem like it was such a outlandish, like, I know, like it was a secret.
Julian so well.
And it's the garage. And it's like, yeah, well, that makes sense. He's trying to leave. He will try to get a car, right?
That's where everyone should have been going, instead of wandering around outside for hours.
Yeah. So Julian goes to the garage. Ivy's sitting there waiting for him with her tiny gun. And when
in her fur coat.
Oh, she looks fabulous. She always looks fabulous. Mm-hmm. She's holding her gun on him, holding him at gunpoint. And she says, at first, Julian, he like puts his hands up. He's like, you're not really going to shoot me. And then she puts the gun kind of down. She pulls it off of him. And she says, I just want you to avoid Ethan at all costs. Like, don't get caught by Ethan.
There was another moment of Julian's humanity here as well. She says, if you care about Ethan at all, if you ever cared about Ethan, stay away from him. And he was like, of course I do. I have been staying away from Ethan.
Yeah, well, the thing about that was, he was like, yeah, of course I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying to do.
He's trying to wrestle him again, yeah.
He was like, what do you mean avoid Ethan? I'm trying to avoid Ethan. I'm trying to avoid all of them. They're trying to kill me, crazy lady. And then he tells her, I know you orchestrated all of this, Ivy. Like, I'm hip to what's going on here. And after this is all over, I'm going to destroy you for this. You're not going to have a penny to your name. I'm going to bounce you out on your ample ass. I think he doesn't say ass, but he says like ample behind. Yeah, something like that. Bounce you out on your ample ass. And you'll be left with nothing. And Ivy then pulls her gun on him again and says, you know what? Maybe I should just kill you, because at least if I'm in jail, you just told me that you're going to leave me without anything. I don't have anything to lose. At least if I kill you, I'll go to jail and I'll have a roof over my head and get 3 square meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so she pulls the gun on him. She tells him to say his prayers. She says, say your prayers, Julian. And she pulls the fucking trigger and it doesn't go off. And the thing is, Ivy really, truly was about to kill Julian. Like, really and truly.
Of 3 of her children thinks nothing of it. Yeah.
No, she hates him. She really and truly pulled the trigger, but it doesn't go off. And when it doesn't go off, he rushes her, grabs the gun, ties her up, gags her. Oh, before he ties her up and gags her, actually, he gets the gun away from her, and then he realizes Luis is outside, and he's like, shh, Luis is outside. And so she's like, oh, great, that's the one I wanted to kill you anyway. And so she starts screaming, Luis! And so that's when Julian goes and like shuts her up, puts his hand over her mouth, and then like ties her up and gags her so she can't make any noise.
Puts a trash can on her head,
yeah,
which
puts
is
a
quite amusing.
bucket on her head. And she's just like struggling, trying to get some noise, make some kind of noise so that Luis will come to the garage. And then she does manage to like knock something over, like she runs her wheelchair into something and it knocks some stuff over and it makes a lot of ruckus. So then they're tipped off that Julian is in the garage. Julian then says, I'm gonna take a page out of your book, Ivy, and gets in his car and drives through the garage doors, right, barely missing Luis. And so he drives for not far because he immediately crashes. He immediately crashes his car, but gets out, starts running, drops his gun, starts running, and everybody's looking for him again. Meanwhile, let's talk about Theresa and Pilar. What's going on with Theresa and Pilar? Theresa is like really upset. Chad and Whitney are like with her, trying to console her, tell her to like rest, take a moment. You need to take a breather, like you're pregnant. You need, or maybe they didn't say she's pregnant because they're still that's still up in the air. But it's still up in the air. It's so weird that it's still up in the air because when what's that girl's name? Somebody says something about the abortion, and it seems like I thought
Teresa's still talking about her baby in the present tense, which is the big tip off. But as far as everyone else is concerned, she's not pregnant anymore.
Yeah, they seem to think that she did go through with the abortion.
But again, she's just had a medical procedure earlier this night. So anyway, they're telling her to lie down.
Yeah. And so they leave her to her own devices. Yeah. Tabitha plants a gun for her. And she finds the gun and she says, you know what? This is all my fault. I need to take care of this. Like, I have to get Julian, basically. So she
wants revenge at this point because she's like, I've got nothing now. I've lost Ethan and it's all because of Julian. Yeah. So I think her motive is just pure vengeance.
Yeah. She now also has a tiny gun. Theresa has a tiny gun.
What's this gun doing here? And she's like, I'll use it.
Yeah. It's for me. It's fate. It's fate.
I'm surprised she didn't say that. She's done with fate now.
So then now she goes outside. Everybody hears the crash. They all go outside, and are brought up to speed on who all is there. Everybody's looking for Julian, right? And Pilar, which gun?
Mine's a tiny gun.
I'm trying to keep up with who picked up what gun. Okay.
So Tabitha plants another gun outside.
Yes.
I think Chad and Whitney and Pilar were all together, but then Chad and Whitney go to try and get Theresa to lie down. Pilar stays there. She's worried about Luis. I can't let my son kill Julian and go to jail. Tiny gun appears conveniently. She's on it.
Yes. So she finds one of Tabitha's planted guns.
Not hard to find.
Ethan finds Julian's gun at the wreck of his car, picks it up. He's like, oh, this is great. I think he says that. This is great. And so he finds the gun, and then we get Tabitha in all her glory, looking at all her handiwork, all the guns that have been disseminated, and she says, all the players are armed. Guns for everyone. You won't live through the night, Julian. Julian Crane will die tonight. All the players are armed. Guns for everyone. That was probably my favorite line of the week. Because it was such a description of what this week was. Guns for
really
everyone.
accurate. And is that when she started talking to the portrait, or does that come later?
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah.
She looks at a portrait of one of the old timey cranes from 300 years ago, who's the one who like um had her burned at the stake, and she says, "I told you I would get my revenge on your family, even if it did
It was
take
kind of
300
cool.
years."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at this point, everybody's got guns. They're all trying to hunt down Julian. Julian runs towards like the cannery, which is on the water, like where the wharf is, right? And so we hear somebody say,
sorry, LeTara, I love the 24 style split screen they did, just with everyone walking around with a gun and Julian just looking harmless. And I was like, is that 24? And I Googled it, and 24 debuted in 2001. So it was definitely an homage.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And 24 was big. People
I loved
loved
it.
that show. I never watched it. I heard it. I know everybody loved it and it was so good, but I never watched it. But yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on what the reference was. I knew
You were
it was
like, what is this? Yeah.
I knew it was some sort of reference, but I was like, I don't know what they're trying to do. They really stylized this very specifically.
Like, obviously it was different music, so it was a little bit weird, but I'm like, they obviously don't have the clearance to use that. And I was like,
Right.
yeah, they're doing 24.
Yeah, so it was great. They all have their guns, and every single person gets their moment where they say their like reason why they want to kill Julian and that they're going to do it tonight, right? So Julian runs towards the wharf. Everybody's like, he can't run far. If he runs any further, he'll jump into the sea. And so he sees the cannery. He's like, the cannery, I can hide in there. Why are the doors to the cannery just open?
Yeah, they are, because he doesn't have a key or anything, does he, on him? Yeah, he just goes in. Yeah.
Why isn't your plant locked up? Why, like, but
he
gets in. Why?
Frank Lomax. So he was head of security at the Crane Mansion. As we know, he's not there anymore. He must have been transferred to the cannery.
He must have been, because who else would be so negligent? Yeah. Who else? So he makes his way into the cannery very easily, and for whatever reason decides to climb a ladder inside of the cannery. And he's like walking across a high catwalk that is over the tuna sterilization vat. Whatever that is. It's very Batman. If you've ever seen like the older Batmans where with the Joker, with Jack Nicholson, where he falls into like that vat of like the green stuff to be like turned into the, that's very much what it looked like to me. It was very like Gotham City. And so then we see somebody in there
from like their point of view, don't we? Mm-hmm. We see it from their bird's eye perspective.
And Julian gets shot.
He does.
Somebody shoots Julian. Dun, dun, dun.
He's like staggering, isn't he, at the top of the precarious walkway? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we leave it this week. Yeah. So that's that. And now we're going to finish up with our magic storyline, our children, our hapless children. They're all at this dance. Timmy is doing a choreographed line dance with all the girls. I loved it. I particularly loved this little move where they were like doing like the little rodeo. Like it was just so cute. And Timmy doing it was so cute. And honey, I'm a sucker for a choreographed dance number, right? No matter how bad it is. And so yeah, that was fun. It was light. It was fun. Meanwhile, Miguel is like questioning Charity about why she's being so different and that she's been so rude and mean to everyone. And she's like, I'm just saying what I think. I'm sorry if that offends your macho Latin pride.
Yeah.
And he says, my what? And then Charity says, actually, I think you're pretty rude and judgmental. And she says, the reason I said that Jessica was wasting her time, because he's basically specifically talking about a comment she made about Timmy being short, right?
Yes.
And she says, well, I said Jessica was wasting her time with Timmy because he lives out of town. You remember what it was like when I lived out of town? Like, we barely were able to see each other. It was very hard. So, and Jessica's been talking a lot about how she wants a boyfriend. And so Miguel like buys this.
Yeah, even though it didn't make sense, because why would you reference him being short? But because I guess he's seen the good charity for so long, he very easily bought that and was easily gaslit and apologized for misunderstanding her.
Yeah, he's desperately trying to find the old Charity in there, right? He's desperately trying
But
to
you
find
would,
it.
wouldn't you? If someone had just had a personality transplant. Yeah.
Overnight, yeah, you would try.
Yeah.
I definitely would try for a while, like with some, especially if it's somebody I loved and we were like gonna get married and all of this. I wouldn't try for. I will say I wouldn't try for more than a month.
You
I
would
wouldn't.
question yourself at first, wouldn't you? But yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't try for more than a month. If you have changed, you have changed, and that's that. But I would try it first because maybe there is something going on
Brain
psychological.
injury.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Maybe they have a brain
Yeah.
tumor. That was like a big plot point on Grey's Anatomy one time where do you watch Grey's Anatomy?
No, I'm too squeamish.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't do anything medical.
Yeah, Amelia had a brain tumor and she had been acting really erratically towards her husband at the time, like wanted a divorce. I can't remember all this stuff, but it turned out she was being so shitty because she had a brain tumor.
And it is a soap opera trope. They had a very famous storyline in General Hospital. You don't watch GH, do you? But it was so a character, Franco. Oh, one of my favorite characters. So he had a brain tumor. He was a serial killer when this tumor was pressing on apart. But then once the tumor out, lovely man, one of the best characters ever. So it's a
Oh
thing
my
that happens
god.
in soaps.
That's such a good plot though. That's such a
Yeah.
good plot because it's like how do you redeem a serial killer?
Well, that's the thing. Some people hate him, and it's like they're like, "Oh, the tumor made me do it," and they could never forgive him. But the tumor did actually make him do it because once the tumor had gone, he was wonderful.
Yeah, how do you redeem a serial
But
killer?
he'd done really bad stuff. Sorry, everyone. I know this is Passions podcast, but he'd made somebody. He'd set up someone's rape. He'd done horrific things, but the tumor made him do it. Yeah.
Oh my god! But the tumor made him do it. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they could have. That could be it.
You would. You think
Charity
you're
might have a tumor.
ill? This isn't you. Get the
Yeah.
doctor of the year here.
Have Eve check her out, but Eve would
Yeah.
probably just give her a sedative till her go to sleep.
You need sleep.
You just need some rest, honey. Okay, so Charity calls him rude, judgmental, all of that. Kay's plan is working out perfectly, basically. So she decides to
Kay's loving it.
she's loving it. She decides to kind of up the ante and she sends Charity to do some dirty dancing with these two guys. And it was very raunchy. It was very raunchy. Everyone is shocked by the scene that they are witnessing, and Miguel is very, very, very upset. And he says, "I'm gonna put a stop to this." And he goes over, pulls Charity off of the guys. And Charity tells him to lighten up. She says, "We were just dancing. Lighten up." And Miguel says, "It's not that you were dancing. It's the way you were dancing with them." And
But it's like you were coming on to them. And
yeah.
she's like, "Well, Kay and Jessica are dancing with the other guys," and he's like, "It's not the same."
And then she says, "You know what? I came here to have a good time." And so then she walks off and goes to dance with yet another dude. Miguel is very hurt, very angry, confused. I feel so bad for this guy. Like, honestly, watching this, as much as I can't stand Charity and I can't stand Miguel in general, typically, and I kind of want Kay to get what she wants, this is actually so
you
cool.
still want Kay to get what she wants? Because I'm like, I've made notes saying she doesn't love Miguel. She's seen him in so much pain. If she really loved him, she would not feel okay to do that to him.
No, I agree. She does not love Miguel. She's obsessed with Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
And a little pain for Miguel. No pain, no gain.
That's how she's seen it, isn't she? He'll be better with me. I can make him happy.
No pain, no gain. It's just that he has to experience the pain, not her, and she gets all the gain.
I guess it's how many times she's like, "I don't understand," and she's like, "Me neither." I'm like, "You liar." She just lies so easily.
Yeah, but like she said, "As God is my witness, I will never be good again."
Yeah, what did I expect from her? She told us.
But yeah, I did have a moment this week where I was like, man, Kay this is actually really cruel. And if she really cared about Miguel, she wouldn't put him through this like the way she is.
Agreed.
So I agree with you for sure on that front. But I still want Kay to win over Charity. Like that's what it is for me. It's not necessarily that like I want her to
Yeah.
get Miguel for I don't know, for love reasons. It's not like I'm like, oh yeah, she and Miguel belong together. It's really just like if I
Because
have to
charity's
root for
charity.
if I have to root
Yeah.
for one or the other, I'm gonna root for Kay, right?
And that's why we're enjoying zombie charity so much, because there's something to her. Even though
Yeah.
she's supposed to be a zombie, I thought zombies had no consciousness. She seems to have a lot of agency, this
Oh
new
yeah.
charity. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's starting to kind of do things. She does a lot of things herself.
Mm.
Like Kay gives her suggestions, but she's like taking the reins herself and doing a lot of just like making a lot of choices.
And when
And
Kay told her to go and do the dirty dancing, she was like, I've been waiting for something like this. I'm like, horny zombie. She's got like desires of her own.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think she'll be happy doing Kay's bidding for very long. I'm interested. Yeah.
that's very clear.
Yeah.
She's getting very annoyed with Kay. You can tell. She's like, "Ugh, what do
Mm.
you want me to do?"
Whatever you
Okay.
want, Kay. But she looks peeved. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so Miguel goes outside to get some air. Kay finds him outside, follows him outside, really, so that she can comfort him. And then the other kids come outside. This was so stupid. Stupid, 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 stupid. The other kids come outside and they notice a light or something coming from the woods and they say, we should check it out.
That's what the
Why?
kids do. Do you not know these kids by now? LeTara, that's what they do.
They think they Scooby Doo in the gang.
Yeah.
I am sick of it. Why? Go back to your party. It's New Year's Eve. Maybe it's fireworks. Maybe it's, I don't know. He's like, it looks like it's coming from the woods. It's like,
They
okay.
know they can't trust the police to do their jobs. The kids have to pick up the slack and
The
go
kids have to do
investigate.
all the investigation in this town. That's so crazy. That's so
Reese is the
true though.
smartest one. He's got his Palm Pilot. He can sort it
Yeah.
out.
He can suss out the situations. Yeah. So they decide to go check out what's happening in the woods. Meanwhile, Timmy has made his way to Charity's cave because he was at the dance and he didn't like seeing what was going on with the zombie Charity and how Kay was like getting everything that Kay wants, and he was like, I miss the real Charity. So he goes
Yeah.
out to the cave to
I thought he
I
was missing Princess, because Jessica was like, are you having a good time, Timmy? He was like, I am having such a good time, but there's something missing. And I was like, oh, he misses Tabitha. But he was missing the real Charity because he
mhm.
loves her.
Yeah, he felt like I'm finally a real boy
Mm.
and I can't even talk to the real Charity. And so he goes out there to, I don't know, free her, talk to the rocks. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
he prays to the angel girl. He's like, "Angel girl, please help me open the cave." And she does. The angel, the light
Yeah.
appears and she opens the cave opens up. He goes in and he talks to little cousin Ice Cube, and then that little angel appears, or I shouldn't say little angel, the angel woman, the
Mm.
grown angel woman appears, and Timmy asks her to save Charity, and she says to him, I can't, but you can.
It's not in her power. Very few things are in her power to this angel girl.
I don't understand what her rules are, what the limitations on her are, and why they're on
Yeah.
her. Because she opened the cave. Like if it was
Yeah.
that she can't meddle at all, then she wouldn't have been able to do that, right?
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. It's a good question.
And so she says, I can't, but you can. Timmy then talks about how he's conflicted about helping and saving Charity because he's stuck between the two women he loves, his
So
princess and
sweet.
Charity. He says Tabitha wouldn't forgive me for this.
Angel girl is
Um,
like, Tabitha's busy tonight, Tim.
and then he asked the angel girl, do you think Charity could ever love me? Could ever love
Mm.
Timmy? And the angel tells Timmy, she says, all I can tell you is that your life and Charity's are intertwined. He
Mhm.
says to her, like Romeo and Juliet? And she's like, yes,
Kinda.
something like that. Yeah, kinda. Can you be more helpful? No, the answer is no. She can't be more helpful. She's very unhelpful, this girl. She tells him their lives are intertwined. He thinks it's like Romeo and Juliet, which does not end well. I cannot stand, and I probably have said this on the podcast at some point, I can't stand any time in a show when they use Romeo and Juliet as like this very romantic example. It is, first of all, the ending is horrible.
And that's what Angel Girl, I think, was alluding to. So
Yeah.
Timmy is thinking romantic. I think Angel Girl was thinking
Yeah,
accuracy.
tragedy.
Yeah.
Tragedy. Yeah, is in store for you. Yeah, it's kind of like Romeo and Juliet. So he says that he's gonna save Charity. And then the angel, if it's the last thing he does,
Yeah.
and the angel girl like whispers under her breath,
Oh,
"Oh, dear Timmy, it just may be the last thing you ever do."
I'm starting to get really sad about this.
Why can't she just help? I
I
it,
hate the Angel Girl.
I
She's
can't stand
awful.
her. I cannot stand her. I just can't stand her. She shows up, wreaks havoc, and then hides away, fucks off again.
But it's
Um,
back to that religion, isn't it? It's God works in mysterious ways. Angel Girl is doing God's work, which is it's so mysterious we can't possibly understand it because our brains are too tiny to get
yeah,
the master plan.
we got two pea brains and
Yeah,
we can't figure it out.
we can't.
So then the kids show up in the forest and they start to like go check towards the cave. They were like, I think the light came from where that cave is over there. And so Kay tells the zombie Charity to come up with a way to
Yeah.
distract the kids. And the way she decides to distract them is she picks up a giant rock and she walks out into the middle of the ice and falls through the ice and starts screaming, "Help! Help!" She says it like that. "Help! Help
I said
me!"
she's done a good Charity impression actually when she was just whiny, annoying. She nailed it.
Yeah. And so, of course, the kids rush to try and get her out of the ice. Kay goes into the cave and is like, how did this get open? But then she checks to see if Charity's still on ice. Charity's still on ice. So she's like, great. And then she just builds the wall back up manually.
Yeah, she's like, I just need to recover the entrance. Then we're all good here.
And so then she heads back and she hears like screams and stuff. So she's like, oh, I guess my zombie figured out what to do. And then she sees the zombie. Because, okay, so Charity gets pulled out of the ice. Miguel pulls Charity out of the ice. She
It's
doesn't.
a human ladder, LeTara. Him and Reese make a human ladder.
A human ladder, yes. And she comes up out of the ice, climbing on their backs. She doesn't even acknowledge Miguel's existence. She doesn't even acknowledge this man who just saved her life. And she immediately makes a beeline to a different boy altogether who she sees, who she thinks is cute. And she goes over to him, and then Miguel falls through the ice. And she does not care at all. Of course she wouldn't. Of course she wouldn't. So the she gets all cozied up to that guy.
It was quite funny though, because he was like, "You're soaking wet. You must be freezing," and she's like, "No, I'm fine, thanks. I love the cold. I find it quite stimulating."
Yes, and y'all just keep that in mind that she's soaking wet. She fell into the ice with all her shit on, right? So this guy
Goes to get hot chocolate.
goes to get hot chocolate for her. Kay comes back up, notices that they're like having hot chocolate. She's like, where the hell's Miguel? And like, where are the rest of the kids? I thought that you were distracting them.
She was like, "What did you do for the distraction?" And Zombie was like, "Well, it worked." Like she didn't say what it was, but then Kay sees that Miguel is drowning, and she does seem. To be fair to Kay, she does seem to be genuinely worried for his safety. But again, I think that selfishly, she wouldn't get her happily ever after if Miguel died. So
Ding,
I
ding,
still think she
ding.
doesn't really love him.
She's
Yeah.
worried about Miguel because if Miguel dies, she'll lose
Her plan
Miguel.
dies. Yeah.
Yeah, she'll lose Miguel, not because Miguel will be dead and it'll be a sad thing for everybody in town, So they managed to get Miguel. Reese manages to get Miguel out of the ice water. He comes out, he's livid because the first thing he sees is Charity just like cozied up to some guy having hot chocolate. And he says, he goes over there, he like lays into her, he says, you were all over that guy. He like pulls her away. You were all over that guy. And she says, you're mad. What? You're mad because I'm not all over you, kissing your feet because you saved me. And
Yeah.
he says, no, but it seems like every time I look up, you're flirting with another guy. He says, I thought we had something special. And she says, I think the operative word there is had.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she says, Miguel, I've outgrown this relationship. I've outgrown you. I want something different, something exciting. I don't want just Disney movies and milkshakes. I want action. And I don't see myself getting that from you.
That was my burn of the week. It was so savage and he looked so hurt.
Yeah, it was so mean. I want to say at one point she sends that guy off and she gives him her scarf, which is soaking wet. Can you imagine somebody
Oh, I
handing
thought
you?
he'd given her his scarf and she was said, I don't
Oh,
mind the cold or something. I could be wrong.
oh yeah, maybe he did. You know what? I'll cut that out because maybe that's because it didn't make sense to me. I was like, why is she giving him? So maybe I just missed him giving her the scarf. I
That was
probably
my
just missed that.
assumption.
I probably just missed that. So she says, yeah, that all those horrible, mean things
Mm.
to Miguel. He's so hurt. He's devastated. He just
And
has watched his relationship crumble
it
out
was
of
really sad because
nowhere.
in Michelle's defense, all the real charity did want was a milkshake and a Disney movie because Miguel was trying to give real charity some action for a long time. She was not into it. So poor Miguel.
Yeah, that's very true. And so then Charity goes back over to the kids and she's like very forceful, bully behavior. She's like, which one
Yeah.
of you has a car who can take me home? And nobody speaks up. And she's like, I said, who has a car and can take me home? And Reese is like, well, I brought my car. And she's like, great, take me home. And yeah, Kay stays with Miguel. The rest of the kids leave. Kay's like, I'll take Miguel home. Don't worry. All the kids are very worried for Miguel. It's crazy to me though that they are not being a little meaner to Charity about this.
Yeah, they're
Like,
kind of too nice, those kids, aren't they? And I guess maybe they're just so shocked because it's not the charity they know either. So it would unsettle you a bit, I think. But yeah,
yeah,
someone should have stuck up for Miguel
yeah, like
more.
the way nobody was like, bitch, are you serious? Nobody's taking you home. You can fucking walk. Like that. Oh, after that display, no, you can walk, babe. You can walk. It's not
I
that
think the
far.
reputation of sweet charity has carried zombie charity a long way, but yeah, it's got to run out soon.
Yeah, yeah. So that's all I have for the week.
Yeah.
That's all
Just
you.
to just yeah, and then just Kay saying, "Oh, I'll get Miguel home," and Miguel's like, "Oh, I don't understand," and Kay's like, "No, I don't even." I'm like, it's like she still has no soul that she can barefaced lie to him, and Miguel says, "I know I can always count on you," and
Yeah,
obviously she's
and
like, "Yeah,
she's got that giant
yeah,
Grinch grin, you know, when the Grinch gets that idea and his like things curl and his face gets real big. You know what I'm talking about in the cartoon?
yep." The
And
guy she loves is in so much pain, and it's making her so happy.
she's so thrilled. So that's it for the week. It was a great week, and I loved it. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this. And
Well, it's iconic. Who shot Julian? A mystery is about to ensue that's going to be overarching storyline for a while now.
yes, and I'm so excited for Theresa to be Mrs. Crane.
Oh, yeah.
I
Their
cannot
marriage is
wait.
valid because they did the deed.
I cannot wait to watch her kick Rebecca out, put Ivy in her place, tell Julian what the fuck's up to. Oh wait, she doesn't tell Julian what's up yet. Later
We're
when he
moving
comes
into a
back.
new era in
When he comes back.
Passions.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it. So that's it for Passions. Or for Passions Podcast today. Lisa, tell everybody where they can find you
I
online.
am on YouTube and Instagram at Make Everyday Looks.
Perfect. I'll link that in the description. And remember, as always, you can find me on all the social media. Check the link in the description. That's it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here, Lisa.
Thank you for having me back. Always love it.
It was so fun. I had a blast. So,
Oh, good. Me too.
with that, you are my passion for life.